Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with invasion protents, showing them painting stuff on before the D-Day invasion, which we might get to today. Maybe not. If I can turn this page. We're now on to Even Life in the Pacific Has Peacetime Problems. May 1944. No truck with trucks. The sign on Tarawa in the Gilbert Islands, captured by American forces in November 1943, suggests a new low boiling point among residents of this tent city, when they sight one of the roaring monsters which hauls supplies about the captured island to accompaniment of horns and dust, disturbing the after-battle quiet of this peaceful scene. Compare this photo with those taken in November during the battle for the beachhead. Yeah, you can see they're like, keep the damn trucks up. Yeah, they'd be loud. You know, you're like, I'm finally peaceful, quiet, burn, and Rav's past, and you're probably just like, shut up. I just want to sleep or relax. They're done with the battle. They don't want to keep hearing it. The Allies open up in Italy. May 9th, 1944. The lull is ended. At 11 p.m. Tuesday, May 9th, Allied guns opened the heaviest artillery barrage yet seen in the Mediterranean theater. 40 minutes later, the guns lifted their range to allow tens of thousands of American and British troops to surge forward against the German Gustav Line. The attack was concentrated in the 25-mile west coast sector of the Tyrrhene Sea inland to Cassino, and was the fourth Allied attempt to smash the Gustav Line, the last previous one having been at Cassino nearly 2 months ago. And these pictures are some of the Nazis captured during the first 2 days of the drive, and, as shown in the bottom picture, many of them were boys. So you can see here some of the men captured. And then in the bottom, yeah, look at them. You can tell. Like this guy, not so much. But at least these two, for sure, and that one. They're just boys. They don't even look over like 16 or anything like that. And it's just, you're starting to see the Germans are kind of starting to scrape the barrel. Sorry about that. But, yeah. So, it's not quite to the point of sheer desperation in the barrel, but it's getting there. The men who led the march on Rome. May 1944. Allied generals in Italy. Shown here are the men chiefly responsible for the strategy and operations during the summer offensive in Italy. While these photos were taken some months prior to the start of the drive, they show the commanders in characteristic poses. At the left is General Sir Harold R.L.G. Alexander, commander of all Allied forces in Italy, and Lieutenant General Mark W. Clark, commander of the American Fifth Army. So, there's good old General Alexander, Harold Alexander, and then there's, as I said, Lieutenant General Mark Clark. You can see Alexander's definitely an older guy there. Clark, he looks a little bit younger. I wonder who that guy is. But then at the right is General Alphonse Pierre Juin, commander of the French troops in the battle for Cassino. So let's go over here. At the far right is Lieutenant General Sir Oliver Leese, who succeeded General Montgomery as head of the British Eighth Army after the latter was transferred to England to prepare for the invasion of France. Prior to this, General Leese had a command under Montgomery during the march for El Alamein to Tunis in the North African campaign. These commanders guided their armies in the combined drive to Rome. Yeah, so obviously they sent Montgomery. They sent Patton to England. Patton had a fictitious force that was supposed to fool the Germans because he kind of did some things that got him in a little bit of trouble. So they kicked him there. The Germans, the story is the Germans thought of him as the Allies' best commander, and so they kicked him there under this fictitious army, and that's why it was supposed to work. Truthfully, the idea was probably the Germans knew he was a prominent commander and just put him there as like, oh, here's a prominent commander, and oh, okay, well then this is probably serious. Probably didn't think he was the best. If anything, they would have probably thought Montgomery, if anything, because he led the drive, through El Alamein, Tunis, all that. Probably would have thought Montgomery. Maybe for the Americans, but who's to say? The siege of Sevastopol ends May 9th, 1944. Back in Russian hands. The Red Army took this fortress city of the Crimea after the siege of 24 days. In 1942, it took the Germans 250 days to wrest the same city from the Russians. Moscow reported 111,000 of the enemy killed or captured. Above, a Soviet tank with flags flying passes along once proud Lenin Street, whose buildings have been reduced to rubble. Below, a woman resident of the city describes the members of the Red Army, her experience during the Nazi occupation. So yeah, Sevastopol, the Germans had it for quite a while. The Red Army takes it back. It's not going to, as far as I know, it doesn't fall back to the Germans at all. I mean, they don't really have any main pushes anymore here in the Soviet offensive. But they say the 111,000 men for the enemy, but obviously they leave out how many the Soviets would have lost, which is probably a decent bit. The Soviets kind of had a problem of throwing men at a problem, and it just kind of worked eventually. But near the end, not the end of the war, it's getting close, but near the end of this, the Soviets don't lose as much. They get a little bit better at fighting, so maybe they didn't lose as much. But the Germans losing that many men, it's likely. They probably would have. Hitler had a problem of throwing a lot of men at the problem at the end of the war, kind of the opposite of the Soviets, really, near the end, or a callback to the Soviets. The Gurkhas move up with the Allies. May 10th, 1944. More trouble for the Nazis. The Gurkhas, members of the British Commonwealth of Nations, are, by nature, excellent soldiers, famous for their ferocity and fearlessness in action. Although excellent marksmen, they are in their element in close quarters and can sever a man's head with a single blow from their native weapons. The Kukri. They are much feared by the Germans, who remember their exploits in the last war. In this picture, two of the Gurkhas, part of the 5th Regiment, attached to the 8th Army, are shown on the alert for Nazi soldiers in a shell-torn building on the Gustav Line. Yeah, so we can see the Gurkhas moving up. They got their Kukris right there. Could they actually, in a single blow, sever a man's head? Probably not. I think there's been tests on that, but it would be fearful enough to hear stories of that the Germans could be terrified of them. Now, if they could actually do it, who's to say? Anti-aircraft guns in action in Italy. May 14th, 1944. Keeping the Nazis out of the air. The skies around Cassino are bright with the light of Allied gunfire as Allied 5th Army battles for possession of the important Italian town. In this picture, 3.7 anti-aircraft gun crews send their arms into action at night as the battle for Rome opened in earnest. Preparation for the offensive had been underway for a month or more. The British 8th Army under Lieutenant General Sir Oliver Leese, which had been on the Adriatic, was moved around to the Cassino front, and the American 5th Army under Lieutenant General Mark W. Clark was put in charge of the Gateau section of the coast. Yeah, the Battle for Rome is getting, like they said, underway seriously now. So the push up from the Gustav line kind of coincides with the landings at D-Day. They happen around the same time, which is, as you could probably imagine for German high command, not a great thing. All fronts are basically collapsing at that point. So, like I said, we're getting quite near the end of the German offensive. Largest loudspeaker in Italy, May 16th, 1944. Allied broadcast to the Italians. With a shattering roar and with the concussion raising clouds of dust, a 240 millimeter howitzer speaks its piece, somewhere in Italy. The white line leading from the breach off to the right of the picture is the lanyard used to fire the gun. This is the largest mobile gun in use by the U.S. Army in Italy, and was one of the guns used to end the German resistance at Cassino and to break through the Gustav line as the Allies started their great drive to free the Eternal City. So we can see here, that's what they were talking about. Load the gun, back up, pull that cord, gun fires. Simple enough. And yeah, they're going to free the Eternal City. To the best of their ability. As far as I remember, Rome doesn't get too damaged by this. I think it's a mix of nobody really wants to damage Rome. I mean, it's kind of an important city. It's where the Pope is. Like, they don't want to kill the Pope. It'd be kind of bad. So it kind of, I think it more or less gets abandoned. We'll find out in the future here. But yeah, so you can see the big gun. But with that, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I could improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.